There's something wrong with me, but I don't know what. How many times have you thought that to yourself, lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling as if it could somehow give you an answer? You try to keep moving forward, check off your responsibilities, smile at people, but deep down it feels like something inside you is screaming in silence, a muffled cry, a quiet agony no one else sees, but it's eating you alive. It's like being surrounded by people yet feeling like you're drowning in an invisible ocean. I'm not here to give you some magic fix. This isn't another "it'll all be okay" like you've heard 1,000 times before. What you're about to realize today is something most people don't have the guts to tell you. God is already speaking to you, and you're ignoring him, and the cost of that is the peace you lost. The truth is simple but deep. That constant restlessness, that unexplainable discomfort, it's not just anxiety, it's not just stress. It could be the sound of God's voice trying to wake you up from a spiritual coma. And if you keep pretending you don't hear it, that voice will go quiet. And when that happens, it might already be too late. It always starts subtle. Nobody wakes up to a blaring heavenly trumpet. No, God speaks to those who have ears to listen, but he doesn't yell. He whispers. He whispers in the emptiness that bothers you. In those moments when you're alone and suddenly feel like something inside you is out of place. And your ears and shall hear a word behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Isaiah 30:21. That's the promise. He speaks. But you've got to stop running and start listening. Remember that time when you were fine on the outside, everything seemed in order, but a strange thought sliced through your mind like lightning. That feeling you weren't where you were supposed to be, that the life you've built felt out of alignment, that you drifted away from something you can't even name anymore. That feeling isn't random. That's God trying to bring your soul back home. The problem is, most people have learned to ignore it, to put on spiritual headphones, to numb themselves with distractions and noise that drown out the only voice that truly matters. You might be surrounded by stimulation, but you feel an emptiness inside. Ever noticed how you can be in the middle of a party and still feel a heaviness in your chest? Like you're smiling with your face, but screaming with your soul? That's no coincidence. That's a calling, a warning from heaven, a silent wake-up. Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Ephesians 5:14. But you stay asleep. And worse, you've gotten comfortable with it. Here's the turning point. And it might sting, but you need to hear it. The more you ignore him, the farther away he feels. You think you're just trying to sort your life out, but in reality, you're pushing God's presence right out of the room. The silence grows. The emptiness too, until one day you don't feel anything at all. And that is the most dangerous day of your life, because the worst thing isn't suffering, it's feeling nothing. It's living numb, running on autopilot, smiling on social media but crying on the inside, without even knowing why anymore. And then you ask yourself, why doesn't God just speak to me clearly? He already is. But you're expecting him to shout, while he prefers to live in the whisper. Just like with Elijah, who didn't hear God in the powerful wind, or the earthquake, or the fire, but in a gentle breeze. 1 Kings 19:11-12. It's in the whisper of your conscience, in the unease of your thoughts, in the tear you can't explain. That's when he speaks. The real question is, are you willing to stop and actually listen? If your soul is screaming right now, if this is hitting exactly what you've been quietly living through, then stop pretending it's normal. It's not. You know it's not. That hidden pain, that chronic dissatisfaction, that's your soul missing God, missing a presence you may have never experienced or once felt, but let slip away. God is still calling. Maybe this is the last time he's trying to reach you through this route. Are you going to ignore him again? Or will you do the unthinkable, shut the world out and finally pay attention to what your mind has been trying to tell you for so long? Why is this still stuck in my head? Ever asked yourself that? Days, weeks, even months go by, and that thought is still there. It sneaks back into your silence, slips into your mind in traffic, shows up in the shower, on your pillow, over breakfast. You try to push it away, distract yourself, but it comes back. And it comes back stronger, clearer, and more uncomfortable. You think it's just paranoia, but it's not. It's a calling, a divine whisper that refuses to die. God plants thoughts like seeds, quiet at first, but meant to grow. And if you keep ignoring them, those seeds turn into restlessness, into weight, until you finally understand it's not just your mind, it's your mission knocking at the door. Those thoughts don't just appear out of nowhere. You know that. They show up with a purpose, an idea of something you need to do, a change you're being called to make, a place you need to leave, a person to forgive, a habit to break. And when you don't obey, the thought doesn't disappear, it lingers. Because when God wants to change your life, He starts with your mind. Do. Not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. The mind is the battlefield. No wonder the enemy tries to keep you distracted, because he knows if you stop and pay attention, you'll realize it's not madness. It's direction. You start seeing signs everywhere. The same word popping up in conversations. People bringing up the subject without knowing anything. Verses showing up right in front of you. You think it's coincidence. But the truth is, God is surrounding you from all sides. There's a story that still gives me chills. A simple, hard-working man kept having the same recurring thought. Call his father, a man he hadn't spoken to in years, and ask for forgiveness. He resisted, thought too much time has passed, but the thought wouldn't leave. One day while driving, he nearly crashed, not because he was distracted, but because the phrase, "forgive before it's too late," hit him so hard inside that he lost focus. He pulled over, took a deep breath, and that day he called his dad. A month later, his father passed away. What if he'd waited? What if he'd ignored that thought from God one more time? God doesn't force us, but He warns us. He plants ideas with the smell of urgency. They're different from ordinary thoughts. They burn inside. They carry weight. They have purpose. And here's the scary part. If you won't act, He'll call someone else in your place. Because God's plans will be fulfilled with you or without you. But He loves you so much, He always tries with you first. At some point in this process, you already know what you need to do. Clarity isn't the problem, courage is. Because obeying that thought demands sacrifice. It demands leaving comfort behind, dropping your pride. And it's at that crossroads where your faith shows. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent His rebuke. Proverbs 3:11. That nagging thought might just be God's way of correcting you, aligning you and saving you. So let me ask you, why are you still resisting? Do you think ignoring it will make it go away? That it'll just fade? It won't, because it's not just a thought. It's God trying to guide you in love before life forces you through pain. That thought that won't leave might be the last invitation before the door closes. I know what I need to do. I just don't want to do it. That's the sentence no one dares to say out loud, but it echoes inside thousands of people. Every single day, you already understood. God already spoke. The thought hasn't left. The confirmations came. But still, you hesitate, you freeze, you fight against the pull to obey. And that, my friend, is the start of an invisible war. This is where many give up, because obeying God isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. It means breaking ties, changing direction, facing fears, admitting wrongs. And that hurts your ego. Your pride starts screaming, trying to drown out God's whisper deep inside. You want Him to speak, but only if He says what you've already decided to do. Anything outside of that, you block it out. Here's a hard truth you need to hear now. God's will won't always make sense. That's where faith kicks in. If it were easy, everyone would obey. If it were logical, faith wouldn't be needed. That's exactly what happened with Jonah. He clearly heard God say, "Go to Nineveh." And what did he do? Ran the other way, got on a ship heading in the opposite direction, because obeying meant breaking prejudices, facing enemies, forgiving. And he didn't want to. Just like you, right now. But what happened to Jonah? The sea turned violent. The storm came. Running didn't work, because when God chooses you for something, running only delays the process and makes it hurt more. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose. Jonah 1:4. God didn't give up on Jonah, but he didn't make it easy either, because those he loves, he confronts. And maybe that's why your life feels stuck. Nothing flows, doors stay shut, your peace is gone, because you're fighting the only voice that could set you free. You're trying to win a fight against God, and that never ends well. The biggest prison isn't made of bars, it's made of wills you won't surrender. This inner battle will eat you alive. You can try to hide it, even fool others, but deep down you know, you're at war with your own conscience, with the direction you've already been given. You're trying to push the cross away while Jesus is asking you to carry it. And here's the scariest part. There comes a point when your heart hardens. God's voice grows fainter and fainter. Because he doesn't force, he calls. But if you keep resisting, the call goes silent, and all that's left is the echo of regret, the memory of what you should have done, the weight of omission. But there's still time. If this message has reached you, it means the fight is still going on. And that's good news. It means God's still calling. He hasn't given up. The plan is still in place. The question you've got to answer now is simple, but brutal. Will you keep fighting him, or will you finally surrender? I felt I shouldn't, but I went anyway. That single sentence has destroyed marriages, ended careers, taken people to places they could never crawl out of. It always starts with a quiet but firm thought. Don't go. An unease. A warning that pops up in the back of your mind like an uncomfortable whisper, but you ignore it. You tell yourself you're overreacting, being paranoid, and only later, when everything falls apart, do you realize God was trying to save you. You've been there. That strange feeling, like something was wrong before it even happened, but you shoved that intuition under the rug. You stayed quiet because you thought it was just fear, just anxiety, just your head making stuff up. But that was the last line before the cliff, and you jumped. The most gut-wrenching part is realizing you knew. You were warned, not by other people, but by the Spirit of God himself, speaking straight into your thoughts. It wasn't an audible voice, but it was crystal clear. That knot in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, that sudden, unshakable urge to stop everything and turn back. The same Spirit who warned Paul in Acts 16:6 not to go to Asia. He wanted to go, but the Spirit stopped him. It wasn't the plan, it wasn't the time, and Paul obeyed. But you kept going, because your flesh pushed you, because the promise of pleasure felt bigger than that quiet discomfort. And when the mistake finally showed its teeth, it was too late. The betrayal happened, the accident came, the heart broke, and you dropped to your knees, not just from pain, but from guilt. Because the most painful truth is this: you felt it, but you didn't listen, and now it eats at you, it wears you down, because now you know that voice was real, that God gave you a way out, that the thought that wouldn't leave was actually an act of mercy, but you treated it like background noise. And now you carry a mark no one else might ever see, but you'll never forget. Here's what almost nobody tells you: even after you fall, God still speaks. Not with condemnation, but with grace. He warns you before and comforts you after. He's the God who warns and the God who lifts you up. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. Psalm 37:24. You fell, but you're still breathing. That alone is a sign. Now you need to do it differently. You need to listen the next time that strange thought shows up. Stop treating your feelings like weakness. Yes, God speaks. And a lot of times he speaks with weight, with pressure, with unease, because if he spoke in comfort all the time, you probably wouldn't pay attention. The hard truth is, most tragedies that hit us had already been announced, not by a prophet, not by an angel, but by the Holy Spirit in your mind. That urge to cancel, that doubt that wouldn't leave, that disturbing dream. All of that was God trying to save you from what you're living through now. But you can still change course. The same God who warned you is still here, ready to teach you how to really hear him. He doesn't want you living led by impulses. He wants you to live guided by spiritual sensitivity, and it starts with respecting the thoughts that unsettle you for the right reasons. How many more fools do you need before you realize that thought was your rescue? Have you ever heard God right in the middle of sinning? I'm not talking about before, not after. I mean in the exact moment, when you're deep in it, doing what you know is wrong, telling yourself just one more time, like you're begging for anesthesia. And even there, at rock bottom, a voice cuts through your thoughts. Calm, but sharp. Loving, but firm. And it says, you can still turn back. That's the most outrageous proof of God's love. He speaks even in the mud. He doesn't wait for you to clean yourself up. He steps into the mess of your conscience, into the shame you try to hide from everyone, and tells you he still wants you, that he still sees you, that he still loves you, even when you can't stand yourself anymore. You know why? Because God's presence isn't about your merit. It's about your openness. And sometimes the pain of your mistake is the only place where your mind gets quiet enough to actually hear. That's exactly how it happened with the prodigal son. He didn't listen to his father when he was home, but in the pigsty, surrounded by filth and scraps, he came to his senses. Luke 15:17. That's where the thought hit him, a thought that made him go back. Maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're living in hidden sin, in a toxic relationship, in an addiction you swore you could control, in a moral compromise you excuse by saying, God understands. And in the middle of it all, that voice shows up. It doesn't shout, but it doesn't go away. It's a whisper that slices through. This isn't you. You try to drown it out, distract yourself, turn the volume up, but it's still there. Because it's not your mind punishing you, it's God inviting you. What blows me away is realizing that God doesn't give up even when we betray him in secret. Yes, you can go to church, raise your hands, preach, and still have hidden sins eating you alive. And still God chooses to speak to you. He doesn't abandon you in your shame. He uses the shame as a window to redemption. Maybe right now you're listening to this with a lump in your throat, because you're living that exact tension, doing what you know is wrong, and at the same time feeling like God is there, not to punish you, but to wake you up. And it messes with you. It breaks you, because you thought he'd left you, but he hasn't. He stayed, even in the middle of the mess. And that's where the turning point happens. When you realize God is present even at your worst, something shifts inside you. You stop running and start surrendering. You finally get that it's not your perfection that draws him, it's your honesty. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Brokenhearted, not perfect, broken, but still within reach. That voice in the middle of your sin isn't condemnation. It's mercy. It's the chance to turn failure into encounter, a fall into a return, the pit into an altar. But for that to happen, you have to stop pretending. You have to say, yes, I'm wrong, but I want to come back. And believe me, when that thought turns into repentance, God won't turn his face away. He'll run toward you, because he never stopped loving you, not even when you stopped loving yourself. Some wounds never fully heal. They become part of you. And sometimes you find yourself asking, why did this happen to me? It wasn't fair, it wasn't expected, it wasn't bearable, but it happened. The loss, the rejection, the betrayal, the breaking point, that thing that knocked the ground out from under you, took your breath away, and left you lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling in silence, because you didn't even have the strength to pray anymore. But it's there, right there, that God starts speaking louder. You think he abandoned you, turned his face away, but in reality, he's shouting, and you just don't notice because the pain became deafening noise. But over time, the crying slows, and in the stillness of suffering, a strange clarity begins to rise. like suddenly you're seeing things you've never seen before. That's when you understand God didn't cause this pain, but He's using it to wake you up. The Bible's full of this. Joseph was sold by his own brothers, wronged, humiliated, thrown in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But it was in the silence of the prison that he was shaped for the throne. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. God didn't spare him from pain, but He used the pain to build something greater. And maybe that's exactly what's happening to you right now. You're trying to make sense of why you lost that person, why you got fired, why the relationship ended, why your world turned upside down. And the answer, as harsh as it sounds, is this: God is using this pain to speak to you. He tried before, whispered through advice, through thoughts, through dreams, but you didn't listen. So He let life break you, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Because sometimes only when we're broken do we actually hear. Looking back, you see it. When everything was fine, you drifted from Him, got distracted, ignored His presence. But now, in the middle of this pain, you think about Him every single day. And without realizing it, you're closer than ever, because the pain pulled you back. God uses suffering like a scalpel, cutting out what doesn't belong, even if it hurts, removing what's holding you back, destroying what's deceiving you, not to punish you, but to rebuild you. But He doesn't force it, He allows it, and then He waits. Will you listen to me now? The turning point comes when you stop asking why and start asking what for. Because every pain carries a hidden mission, every tear has a direction, every loss has a secret. Word from God. And if you pay attention, you'll realize the pain didn't come to kill you. It came to resurrect you. Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. 2 Corinthians 7:10. The pain you're feeling now could be the birth of a new version of you, stronger, more sensitive to God's voice, more alive. But that only happens if you let the pain transform you and not just destroy you. So breathe, stop running. This pain might be the answer you've been waiting for. Have you ever thought something in secret and then heard someone say that exact thing out loud? Like God had read your mind and somehow put the answer in someone else's mouth. It's like heaven answering with human words, something you'd never dare tell anyone. Coincidence? No. Confirmation. It happens like this. You're torn, wrestling with a thought that won't leave, carrying a silent heaviness. Your mind is screaming, but you're not sure if it's God or just confusion. Then, out of nowhere, you hear a sentence, a word, a clip in a video, a sermon, a passing comment, and it hits your chest like lightning. It's exactly what you were thinking. You didn't tell anyone, didn't write it down, didn't ask for advice, but still someone says it, describes it, names it, lays it out with precision, and your body reacts. Chills run down your spine, goosebumps rise. Time seems to freeze, because in that moment, you know God is answering you. And that's when the awe hits. How did He know? How did someone who doesn't know your pain say exactly what you needed to hear? Because God knows the secret places. He knows the backstage of your soul. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. Psalm 139:4. And because He knows how much you doubt, He sends you external confirmations, loud, unmistakable. I remember a true story. A woman was in crisis, alone at home, on her knees, asking if God still saw her. Crying, she kept repeating in her mind, "Speak to me, just once, anything." That same day, without telling a soul, she got a message from an old number she hadn't used in years. It was a friend from long ago saying, "God told me to tell you that He's never stopped watching over you." The woman broke down in tears. She didn't need proof anymore. God had answered, and maybe that's already happened to you. Maybe what you're living right now, through this video, is that very confirmation, because you didn't stumble here by accident. You're not listening out of curiosity. Something inside you brought you here. And now, as you listen, you realize, this is exactly what I needed. This isn't a script. This is divine direction. The turning point comes when you understand these confirmations aren't random. They're love strategies. They're God telling you, I know what's going on in your mind. And yes, it's me talking to you. And it's not to scare you. It's to realign you, to keep you from wasting time in doubt, to make sure you understand you're not walking this road alone. You've been questioning too much, searching for answers where there aren't any. But today, you've heard what you needed. And this isn't a coincidence. It's a reminder. God is still in control. And when He wants you to know, He speaks. If not through a thought, then another way. But He speaks. So stop resisting. You asked for a sign. Here it is. Now, what are you going to do with it? There comes a moment when God's voice doesn't come as comfort anymore. It comes as confrontation. Have you felt that? That sense that the time for thinking, analyzing, waiting is over. Now it's time to decide, to choose, to act. And that voice that once whispered sweetly now weighs heavy. It presses, it corners you. Not because God is cruel, but because He knows the time for doubt is gone, and you have to choose. This is the hardest phase of the spiritual journey, the moment God demands an answer, when He's already shown you signs, confirmed your thoughts, touched your soul, pulled you out of pain, and now says, so, are you coming with me or not? You feel it like a weight on your chest. You can't pretend you don't understand anymore. You can't keep kicking the can down the road. This choice is haunting you. You wake up thinking about it. You fall asleep trying to run from it. But the truth comes back. It always comes back. Because when God has a plan, He won't leave you alone until you take a stand. It was the same with Moses. When God called him from the burning bush, he tried to dodge it, made excuses, questioned. But there came a moment when God simply said, go. Exodus 3:10. There was no more room for discussion. It was now or miss the calling. God didn't yell, but He stopped asking for permission. And maybe that's what's happening with you. You feel that if you don't act now, you'll lose something eternal. A moment that won't come back. A door that doesn't open twice. An opportunity that, if ignored, will turn into regret. That voice isn't giving you wiggle room anymore. It's not asking if you're comfortable. It's demanding courage, because there's something you know you need to give up, a change you know you need to make. And God isn't going to ease up until you decide. You think, I still have time. Do you? Are you sure? Because the greatest lie from hell isn't saying God doesn't exist. It's convincing you that you can leave it for later, and that later slowly kills everything inside you. First your faith, then your peace, then your sensitivity to His voice. And there comes a point when, if you keep delaying, God's voice won't sound as clear anymore. It'll grow distant until you get used to the silence and start calling that silence peace. But deep down, you know it's emptiness. That's why God is pressing you now. He doesn't just want to move your emotions. He wants a decision, because like Joshua told the people, choose this day whom you will serve. Joshua 24:15. Not tomorrow, not later, today, now. The turning point is when you stop bargaining with God and simply surrender. When you understand there's no such thing as half obedience. Either you give it all, or you stay chained to what's destroying you. Either you answer, or you spend your life running from the only voice that could set you free. So what's it going to be? Will you keep living in almost, or finally say yes? No, there's a moment when the soul stops screaming because it knows you're not going to listen. Have you ever been close to that? Ignored God's voice so much that at some point it just faded? Not that He left, but you got so used to silencing, delaying, avoiding, rationalizing that now you don't hear anything anymore. Just an empty echo inside. This is the most dangerous point in spiritual life. When a person still breathes, still works, still smiles, but something inside has already died. Sensitivity, repentance, light, and the scariest part, they don't even realize it, because the heart hardened little by little, a no here, a later there, and before you know it, the heart doesn't feel anymore. It just functions. That's exactly what happened with King Saul. He started off listening to God. He was anointed, chosen. But over time he started doing things his own way, ignored instructions, drifted little by little, until one day, when he needed it most, God didn't answer anymore. But the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. 1 Samuel 28:6. And in that silence, something inside Saul died. Do you feel like you're there, living on autopilot, no longer feeling that restlessness, that urge to seek, to pray, to weep? That's not maturity, that's coldness. And it starts just like this, ignoring a thought here, dismissing a sign there, until God's presence becomes just a memory, far, distant, silent. You think you're fine. After all, life goes on. Bills are paid, friends are around, laughter is there, forced but there. But you know what can't be fooled? Your soul. It knows it's dry. It knows it's lost the connection. It knows it doesn't recognize the Father's voice anymore. And that hurts, quietly, because not everyone who's lost looks lost on the outside. The turning point here is harsh, but necessary. God won't force anyone to listen forever. There's a time for mercy, yes, but there's also a time for harvest. And if you reject the seeds for too long, the soil of your heart hardens, and nothing grows anymore. Not even tears, not even repentance, not even answers. But there's still a thread of hope, because if this message is reaching you right now, it means death hasn't fully set in. There's still a breath, a spark, one last call. Like Ezekiel standing before the valley of dry bones, God still asks, can these bones live? Ezekiel 37:3. And the answer is in you. Maybe today is your last inner breath, the last time your conscience will still nudge you. If you ignore it now, you might never hear it again. But if you answer, God can bring back to life everything that's died inside you. Sensitivity, hunger for Him, peace, direction, light. Do you have the courage to say to Him, speak to me again? You may have ignored Him, you may have fallen, you may have run away, but there's still time, because God doesn't put a period where humans only see a comma. He's the only one who still speaks, even after so much silence, even after so much resistance, even after you've convinced yourself you don't deserve to hear anything anymore. But He's still here, waiting. You notice it when everything seems lost, yet something inside you still asks for one last chance. A prayer in your thoughts, a muffled cry, a desire to come back, even if you don't know how. That's the Spirit of God pulling you back into the light. Where do you think that desire came from? Do you really think, after everything, that this video just happened to show up for you? No. That's redemption surrounding you one last time. It's the Father stepping up to the door you closed and knocking again. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. Revelation 3:20. This is the most outrageous promise of love ever made. He doesn't demand that you fix everything first. He doesn't charge purity, doesn't demand perfection. He only asks that you listen again, and this time, open the door. It's simple. So simple most people don't believe it, but it's true. You can come back right now. You might be far, cold, broken, wrecked. You might have done what you swore you'd never do. You might have ignored the signs, rejected the thoughts, silenced the voice. But if right now, right this second, you stop everything, take a deep breath, and say in your mind, God, speak to me again. He will, because He's never given up on you. You were the one who stopped listening. This is the turning point, the decision to stop living like someone who's dead inside, to stop surviving while ignoring the voice that, from the very beginning, only wanted to save you. Maybe you've never heard it this clearly before. Maybe this is the first time heaven has really reached you. So don't run. Don't harden your heart. Don't close that door. Redemption isn't a place for the perfect. It's a home for the worn out. And that home is open. Come home, there's still time. If you've made it this far, I want to genuinely congratulate you. Few people have the courage to face the truth, to dive deep into their own pain, and to listen to God's voice with an open heart. But you stayed, you listened, you searched. And that shows something special is happening inside you. You're waking up, you're growing, you're coming home. Now I invite you to leave a comment below. Share what touched you the most, what God spoke to you through this message. And if you don't know what to write, just comment, "I'm grateful to God." That simple phrase will let us know you stayed till the end and that the Spirit of God reached your heart. Also, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Here, you'll find messages that build you up, challenge you, heal you, and bring you closer and closer to God's presence. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a thing. And to keep feeding your faith, we've left 2 videos right here at the end with Christian reflections that will strengthen your spiritual walk even more. May God bless you deeply, and never forget, He's still speaking to you. You just have to want to hear Him.